Right. I should be live. Surprisingly not in the group though, which is where I thought I would be. What's going on? What's going on? What's happening? Why aren't I live in the group? Am I live on my profile? Is that what's happened? It's live now. Yeah, right. What's happening here? Sorry about this. I'm having a couple of technical difficulties with the old Facebook. So I have shared it now. Oh, that's going to mess up the comments, I believe. It's for some reason, and I don't know why, it's broadcasting onto my uh, profile. I don't know if I'll be able to see the comments now, rather than onto the group itself. So I'm live on my Facebook page profile, which is a bit annoying. Excuse me. Right, I'm gonna put. I don't know how this is going to work now. Been having a couple of problems this morning. I don't know why I'm talking in a sort of Cockney accent. Let me put. I'm going to put the questions in wherever I feel I can. So there are the questions. See, I don't even know if you're going to see them. Interesting. Hmm. So you see an IEMT. Let me just. Sorry, I'm just sorry about this. This is not going the way I wanted. Such as life, eh? Right. Sharing it to my story. I don't even know how. I don't even know how that's happening. Right. I'm going to go ahead with the Q&A. I am going to. I'll go ahead with it. I can't really do anything. I don't know. I won't be able to see your comments. I don't think. I will try, but I'm not entirely hopeful, to be perfectly honest. But we'll have to just sort of see what happens. Right, let me just post the questions down here so I can see them better. If you do comment, I think there was somebody. Right. Okay. So that's Sarah. Right. I think we're just going to have to see how life turns out today, aren't we? Okay. Right. So I've got some good questions anyway. Okay. Hi, Matt. I have two questions. Good. Is it possible to set up the camera so that when I say eyes to the right, the client sees my fingers on the right? No, it's not. Because that'll be you're overcomplicating it. I don't even need to read the rest of the question to know that you're overcomplicating the process. Because from what I understand, he's wanting to move his eyes to the right and to go to the well. Yes, you can. You don't mirror you don't mirror your camera, but that's going to make things incredibly complicated because when you move your fingers, it's going to be different on the screen. So you're right. No, just don't do it. Just learn how to do it the proper way. If the client changes the mirroring configuration, right? Okay, look. Let me start. No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to overcomplicate it. When you're working with somebody in person, it's the same. Basically, you're moving. So if somebody's facing you, your right is their left. So you want to replicate that. You don't want it to be so you move your hands to the right and they're looking to their right. No, that's just overcomplicating things. Either do one of two things. Either get some post-it notes, put it around your screen with left and right, obviously on the wrong sides, or say side to side, corner to corner. That's it. Sometimes a low-tech approach is often what works best. So don't mess around with camera configurations to try and change things, to try and do anything fancy. Just do it that way. Do side to side, corner to corner. Number two, in the integrative kinesthetic algorithm, we work on with any feeling or emotion that the client brings, or should we check and work with the basic emotions associated? For example, can we work directly with procrastination? Well, no, because that's not a feeling. Anxiety? No, because that's not a feeling. Panic? Well, no, because that's not really a feeling. Helplessness? Yeah, helplessness, I suppose. Not enough? No, because that's not a feeling. Incapable? That's not really a feeling. That's a description. Frustration, yeah, you can work frustration. Betrayed, that's not a feeling. That's an action. Jealousy, yep. Or should we get some work with the corresponding emotions? Anger, sadness, guilt, fear, shame, and regret. Okay, so I think we're getting a bit complicated here, confused. The when somebody comes to you because they're suffering from basically sort of like they don't really know what's going on, they're anxious or essentially depressed. We do the three pillars. We show them what we call the three pillar diagram. And then we elicit an emotion from the past and an emotion from the future. So basically, these emotions, that's what you then work on. So if we just break this down, so yeah, basically, when somebody comes to you, it's an exploration of the problem. So I'm trying to find out what the problem is and the emotions that they're experiencing. And there's loads of ways of obviously eliciting different emotions. Uh, okay, so you can now see me. That's important, Sarah. So there's loads of ways of eliciting the emotion. Now, some people will know the emotions they're coming with. So anger is, oh, no, wait a minute, let's go from the top. So should we work with procrastination? No, because procrastination is not an emotion, is it? Procrastination is an action of not doing something. So it's not, so it's an inaction. So what I would do is I'd be like, so by procrastinating, what's it allowing you to avoid? Because procrastinating is just not doing something. Now, a lot of people think that you can just put motivation in there, and that will work for a bit, but it's not going to work long term, is it? Until you figure out what the problem is with procrastination, um, and the what by not doing the thing, what does it allow them to avoid? That's what you then want to work on. You see, anxiety. If somebody has anxiety, we do the three pillars. We work out the feelings we're actually going to work on. Not enough. That's probably more of an identity issue, not being enough. Incapable. That's probably an identity issue, is incapable. Frustration, yeah, you can work on that. Again, betrayed. That's, well, if they were betrayed, what's the feeling there? Betrayed might be a feeling, to be honest. It's probably, again, more of an identity thing to do with the other person who betrayed them. Jealousy, yeah, jealousy is always a good one to work on. So again, those emotions that we say in the three pillars are for when you use the three pillars. But obviously, you can work on any emotions. Don't work on positive emotions. I get asked that. So you don't want to work on positive emotions. You just want to work on the negative emotions and then go for the imprints. I'm going to work with someone tomorrow for the first time who has issues with anger outbursts. At this stage, she doesn't know where they originate from. One question I have is, do I need the episodic time exercise for the case study? But what would be the start issue be for her? I'm not aware of any particular trauma thing that we could start with since we're addressing an emotion. Don't worry. So is it through doing the algorithm so the memories will appear? So one of these will be the start point of the episodic time. Okay, okay. So first of all, she's coming to you for anger outbursts, but she doesn't know what the start is. Well, yeah, that's why she's coming for therapy. That's why she's coming for IEMT. So you can work out where these imprints are. So she has these anger outbursts. So what I would do personally is to tell me about these anger outbursts. Now, these anger outbursts are probably to do with the three pillars, and probably is an overreaction to something. So what I would be looking to do is finding out what makes her angry. So I'd be using that as like a trigger, basically, to find the emotion, to work on the emotion. So you're having these anger outbursts. Okay, well, tell me. And you can use an example. When was the last time that this happened? Tell me about this anger. Okay, so this anger outburst, how strong is this feeling out of 10? How familiar is this? And when is the first time you can remember feeling this way now? And then that's how I'd then begin to work on it. And then once I've been doing, obviously, I'm then going to go work on the imprints. Da, 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 da. For the episodic time, we want to use the episodic time from something that's been sort of traumatic, something that's kind of changed her life. So it might have been the start of these anger outbursts. It might have, I don't know. It doesn't have to be something really long ago. It can be something that happened sort of a while, quite a short time ago. Now, the thing is, the episodic time isn't necessary to do in every session, every first session anyway. I just like to see people using it, obviously, in the case studies. And there's always something you can usually find, a mistake which they've made, a decision which they regret, something which they ruminate on, and what they have then done since. So I don't know where you're going to do the episodic time from because I haven't done the session, but I will find something from within the session that I'm then going to do the episodic time on, if that makes sense. Okay, I haven't had the intake form back, but multiple traumas. Client has had counselling, but I feel heavy and hypervigilant. Got to yet check out epilepsy. On medication, no seizures for 24 years, not light sensitive. She's checking with her doctor. Could this be CPTSD? Depending on what comes back, should I ask her to prioritize the traumas or quite significant, or would you just usually say presenting with? Well, first of all, are you qualified to work with somebody who's on medication for epilepsy? If the answer is no, then you shouldn't work with this person. This is a contraindication. Now, if you're medically trained to work with this person, multiple traumas, client has had counselling but feels heavy and hypervigilant. It could be CPTSD. So the way that I tend to do CPTSD is if they have multiple traumas, I will use the introductory pattern or the simple pattern, as I call it, which I think I will be changing, choose just to call the introductory pattern and the kinesthetic pattern, just to make it easier because people are getting a bit confused. So you can certainly start the session with that. So if they come with specific traumas, the way that I work is I would then work on a few of these traumas. Then basically what I'm really looking for is the emotion that's coming out of those. So I'd use the simple pattern for a couple of times, and it's probably going to generate quite a lot of emotion, which I'm then just going to go straight into the kinesthetic pattern with. But I wouldn't be doing that with somebody who's on medication for epilepsy. For the simple identity work, does it matter whether we run through all parts, I, myself, and you first, then a second time, or whether we run I until consolidated, then me? Right, okay. Let me make this very, very, very clear. You do an elicitation of I, myself, and you. You then work out what is unintegrated and what you then need to work on. You then work on the ones that need to be integrated. You then re-elicit the ones that you have worked on, all of them. You then work out what you need to integrate. You then do the ones you need to integrate. You then re-elicit what you have worked on. You then work on the ones that you need to integrate. Okay? You don't elicit I, work on I, re-elicit I, work on I. Realist I, work on I. Nope. You do I, me, self, you, then you work on what you need to do. You then reelicit what you've worked on, work out what you need to continue to work on. Continue to work on that, reelicit. Okay? You don't just do one part and keep going. You go down, you don't go across. One more from me. When we do the complex identity algorithm, do we ask for the label of the memory? No, because there's no memories. Or do we work on a nickname or a belief? Also, if we do the people's identities, can we rate the 0 to 10 emotions of how they feel towards them? So yeah. So let me just make something really, really, really clear here. When we're doing identity work, we're not taking any memories or any imprints. We're simply directing them into the identity and asking them to go to the first time they can remember being this way, holding that as like a conceptual thing, and then running the lazy 8 until the eyes run smooth. Then asking how they think about it or what's it now like. And if it's still there, we do it again until it's integrated in. Okay. We're not rating it out of 10. However, if somebody is angry, then yeah. So you can take that feeling of anger, rate it out of 10, and I would do the emotion first. So do the emotion first and then the identity. We've got a question here. I can't see the 1 second. Uh, okay. So was that about the I, me, self, you, was it? Yeah. So we do the I, me, self, you again. We process it through. I'm going to look at working and changing the manual actually to. Um, so yeah, but like I say, when you're doing identity work, if it triggers off any emotion, use the kinesthetic pattern and then do the identity work. So let's say that you're working with somebody and they have a feeling, or they have this issue with, say, like an ex-partner. And when they think about this ex-partner, it makes them very sad, makes them very upset, whatever. Right, do the kinesthetic. Now get them to think about that ex-partner, hold that representation, do the lazy 8 until it runs smooth. Hi. Hi. I did the identity work on someone, and when we did her identity, we got 5 rounds and none of the parts near her age that were going up and down. None of her parts got near her age, and the ages were going up and down. On the last round that was happening, a round changed to positive to I, me, self, but still negative for you. This was a very long session, and she was happy to leave it there. I said we would check back in, and we should continue. Please advise. Okay, right. Let me just see if that's the comment. Yeah, I just need. So right. Okay. So let me. I'll come back to that one, Sarah. Let me just. I'll just make a note of that. 20-minute video. Okay. So I think that basically, if you should be able to bring the client's ages and experiences into line, usually within 4 sets of eye movements. Because if you can't, there is usually something kind of going on. Now, what you said here is that for the identity of you, there was something negative. Okay, so there was something negative for the identity of you. What I would therefore then do is use that negative thing in the integrative pattern. Okay, I would use that negative thing in the integrative pattern. So this negative thing now, how strong is that emotion? How familiar? And when's the first time you can remember feeling this way? And then process those out and then do a reelicitation just for the identity view. That's what I would do there. When's the phobia training? So the phobia coaching will be next Tuesday at 7 p.m. On second, I'd say. So, oh, sorry, let me just close my emails down. So the phobia training will be next Tuesday at 7. I'll be getting that online today. Well, so what do people supply for the 20-minute case study? I don't mind what you supply. You don't need to do a greatest hit. So just do the introductory pattern and, do a kinesthetic pattern. That's fine. Just whatever you want. Yeah, just supply. Don't supply me an hour video and stuff. You can just send me the link if you want. Just send me the link to the whole session and I'll just kind of watch through bits. But you only do need to send me a 20-minute sample clip. Usually it tends to be from the start of the first session. Again, I don't mind. I have, I don't know. When we have when we have identified the linchpin, there's I and me. What? Wait a minute. When we have identified the linchpin and they feel completely out of control and overwhelmed, and in the linchpin there's an I and me, do we work on the identity of I and me and then the feeling of being out of control and overwhelmed? How would you approach this? Okay, how would I approach this? I'd say, what does it say in the manual and what does it say in the training? Okay, I always refer people this back to this. Okay, when we do the linchpin, okay, we get them to hold the linchpin and you just move their eyes. You just get them to hold the linchpin, move their eyes, and then deal with whatever comes afterwards. So essentially what looks like just the basic pattern. So I would do all emotions and stuff like that, emotions and memories and stuff first on the do the linchpin, then see if there's any other kind of emotions. So when you're holding the right, okay, well, once you've done the linchpin, if there hasn't been much of a shift, personally, I probably think you haven't identified the linchpin. I think you may have not have fully explained it properly to them, or they don't know what it is. Because once you get to the linchpin and you work on the linchpin, it tends to be quite a dramatic thing that you do. So my concern is that you're not actually working on the linchpin. I would take them through it again, listen to my examples on the training of what the linchpin is, the part of them which seeps out under pressure, work on that. If there isn't much of a change, there isn't much of a change, But then I would then work out what comes afterwards. So the emotions and the identity work I would then do afterwards. So overwhelm, he said here. And they feel completely out of control. When we've identified the linchpin and they feel completely out of control and overwhelmed, and in the linchpin there's I and me. See, I wouldn't be doing any identity work at that time. I'd mainly be going for the emotions and stuff. Now, the reason why we do sort of identity work later on is because, in my understanding, it's easier to change identity work once you've got rid of all the feelings and emotions. Does that make sense? And for example, say that you do the linchpin and then there's a feeling of overwhelm afterwards. Well, how strong, how familiar, and when's the first time you can remember feeling this way? Any other questions at all? I think that's all the questions. I'll just do a quick recap of. I'll just do a quick recap of what we've done so far. Okay, the first question, can I change the camera setup so when I'm moving my fingers, it's going to what I'm saying? So basically, if I'm moving it to the, no, don't do that. Learn that that's to your, their left or to your right. Basically, just say side to side. It just cuts out all of those problems. Side to side, corner to corner, or get some little sticky things and put them around the screen. Don't be messing things up like that, because when you're with somebody in person, that's what it's like anyway, all right? Integrative pattern, feelings, emotions. Again, procrastination's not, you've got to actually have a feeling. Procrastination's not a feeling. It's an inaction because they're avoiding doing something. You don't have to use the emotions from the three pillars. We use the three pillars when somebody doesn't know what the emotions are because they're having anxiety. If someone's going to start tomorrow for the first time, anger outburst, da, 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 yeah, so you're wanting to elicit the anger, so this feeling, this anger which they have. And then I would do an episodic time issue thing. For again, it doesn't have to be sort of too long ago. It's just something that was quite traumatic, something that was bad for them, something which they feel really bad about, and do it from there. There's somebody with who has hypervigilant epilepsy or medication. Only work with them if you're trained to deal with an epileptic seizure. Just because they haven't had a fit for 24 years doesn't mean they're not going to have one when working with you. Again, if you're medically trained to deal with epileptic fits, go right ahead. For the simple identity work, you do all the elicitation, then you work on everything, then the elicitation, then you work on everything. So when we do complex identity, do we ask them for the label of the memory if we work on a nickname or a belief? Again, you're not working on memories if you're doing identity work. It's just going back to basic kind of periods of time. However, if emotions do come up, use the integrative pattern to do so. If you've done several rounds of the I, me, self, you, and there's still some sort of negative experience, I then work with the negative experience, and then do a reelicitation. What's that? Quick hit on. Phobia training will be next Tuesday at 7. And what do you supply on a 20-minute video? I don't mind. Just supply a 20-minute video for your case studies. Again, most people just start the recording and stop it after like 20, 25 minutes and send that over to me. If you want to send me the whole thing, fine. If you're going to do that, make sure it's a link and it's not the whole video because that's massive, right? Any other questions at all? Any other questions? Also, the I know there's been a little issue on the WhatsApp group. Somebody has actually left us. I didn't tell them to leave or anything, but if somebody asks a question, please only give helpful answers. I don't want anybody to feel like they can't ask a question because they might be laughed at or something like that. A lot of IMT is quite complicated. Okay, so if you're not going to put something helpful or supportive, just don't respond. So again, the person who did it has left. I didn't say them to leave, and all I said was if you're going to just make sure you give supportive and helpful answers because sarcastic and whatever will be deleted, and they will be. So I want the WhatsApp group especially to be, a safe space. I don't like the word safe space. But basically, it should be a place where you can ask any question in regards to IEMT, and I will give you an answer. I'll give you an answer here. Other people will give you answers, but we don't do sarcastic answers and stuff like that. Also worked with strong feelings of shame, 3 iteration, and only a short of 10 to 10, 8.5 out of 10. How would you proceed? Also working with a strong feeling of shame. 3 iterations, only a short from 10 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. Hmm. If there's probably, okay, there's a few things that could be going on here. You might not be getting back to the imprint. If it's going from 10 out of 10 to 8 out of 5, you're probably not getting back to the right imprint. So that's what I would check first. Are you actually getting back to the imprint? Chances are they're just going back to an earlier time they can remember feeling this way, but not to the first time. Once you get back to the first time, it does have a much bigger impact. So that's what I suspect. How would I proceed? I would, after I've done it 4 times, if nothing happens, I'd move on to something else. Then later on, I can always come back and check those emotions to see what's happened there. Also, what I would consider, if it's shame, who else is involved and the identity of the other people involved, because that might be the problem. So I could do the external identity of other people. What are your thoughts of these? What are your thoughts on these sorts of interventions with insomnia? Well, insomnia is a weird one because, again, when I learned hypnosis, I got given a script for insomnia. I got given a script for speaking in public, right? What I realized very quickly is that you can have two people with a fear of speaking in public, and they have two completely different sets of problems. So when I say insomnia either can be a medical condition which should be treated medically, or it can be the result of lots of other things. I don't usually find somebody who has insomnia or is suffering from insomnia or sleep issues doesn't have emotional stress and these kind of trauma, this kind of stuff. So when I've worked with people with sleep issues, and I have, so when you think about going to sleep, what's it like? I get just fearful because when you go to sleep, it's a loss or a lack of control. You are at the mercy of your dreams and your subconscious and things that you've done, experienced, and all this kind of stuff. So I've very successfully worked with people with sleeping issues, but a lot of people have sleeping issues because they drink a lot, they do a lot of drugs, they smoke, they drink coffee late, they have poor, what we call sleep hygiene. They're in bed watching screens and they're wondering why they're not sleeping. So I have found a lot of insomnia has got nothing to do with a sleep issue. It's got to do with their lifestyle. So I would investigate that first. Think about it like this. Would this person have insomnia if they were in a quiet room without any screens or distractions? They hadn't had any coffee and they were in just a cool room with no lights in a nice bed. Would they still have the problems? Because if they do, then that's probably a medical issue that they need to be sort of seen for, or it could obviously be feelings and stuff. Um, we do sleep less, or our quality of sleep becomes less as we get older. I believe it's from the melatonin. Uh, but generally, sleep hygiene is the thing to look at first, and then so sleep hygiene is check out Beatrix Schmidt. She does lots of stuff around sleep. And then basically after then, I would be really investigating what's keeping them up or what are their dreams like? What's the problem with going to sleep? Is it going to sleep or is it being asleep? It's like when people have a fear of death. It's generally about that fear of dying or being dead. And so you need to work out which it is. Any other questions at all? I had insomnia for quite a while. I used to live in not central London, but I lived in a place in North London. I was in the centre of that, so it was like a small town basically. And I had a flat underneath me, and there were three, I think there's three of them, and they were like service workers. I think they worked in hotels or something. And one of them used to come back at 4:30, 5 in the morning and play music and have friends round and stuff. And that used to wake me up. And now they weren't that loud. They were loud enough to wake me up, right? But they weren't being overly loud. Um, no, no, it has one in Messenger, right? In Messenger. Right, okay, let me read that. I completely forgot what I was saying. It was very good though. Oh, and my insomnia not just became because of the noise, it was also the fear of them coming back. And I worked out more than anything was a fear of confrontation as well. I did actually have to go and speak to them and get the landlords involved. And once we did that, my insomnia really did clear up. So let me put this into the. There's a Nuno's asked one in chat. Not in chat, in Messenger. Let me just bring this up. Here we go. I have a client who has a fear of being around people because her parents didn't like her, beated her, as well as many people on the place where she lives. Other family, school colleagues, and neighbors. I don't understand that. So it's not just one traumatic event, but many that occurred since childhood. She's 47 years old. Should I do the PTSD or work with the emotions and memories? So I wouldn't do a PTSD model on that personally. I personally find the PTSD model works really well on generally a single incident that has fundamentally changed that person. Now, saying that, there may have been an incident during this period of time that does qualify for that. I don't know, that really changed them. And if that's the case, so I've had people who used to get beaten by their parents, and at one point that the person struck back and punched their mum in her face, which they couldn't believe that they did and stuff, So that's what it was around. I have a client who has a fear of being around people. That's where I would start. Because her parents didn't like her, beated her as well as many of the people on the place where she lived. So other people, other school colleagues, they all beat her. I Sounds very bizarre that the whole neighborhood used to beat somebody up. I don't know. I don't know, it might be. So what I would do there is basically I would get this fear, and elicit that and go back to the imprint of that. You could do some specific memories that kind of come up around that. Absolutely, that's what I would do. But also, it'd be a lot of identity work with other people, the identities of other people. And then you want to then get now she thinks about going out. So the preemptive emotions of going out and actually moving somebody forward. So when they think about going out and meeting people, how strong is that feeling? How familiar? And when's the first time? That's how I would work around that. And then I would do an I, me, self, you from meeting new people, actually being in a room meeting or whatever, how they're going to meet new people. That's what I would do for that. Any other questions? Right, okay, guys, I will put up the the phobia training next. I'll put it up this afternoon. In fact, yeah, I'll put it up in an hour or so. And so that will be it'll be like a little mini training of how I deal with phobias. It'll be good. It'll be very good. I think we're all done. Okay, guys, if I have missed any comment, if I have missed any, put them again, and I'll definitely do them next week anyway. All right, guys, it's been beautiful, and I will see you later.